At first glance, Ride with the Reaper looks like a new take on the classic action game Spy Hunter, but it didn't take me more than a few seconds to realize that this punishingly difficult racer has more in common with Bump and Jump. That's the 37-year-old Data East game where players bumped enemies out of the way and jumped over obstacles. Ride with the Reaper takes that idea and cranks the difficulty up to 11. It's a speedy and occasionally satisfying racing game that's not for the easily frustrated. Created by Spanish developer Sergi Collado, Ride with the Reaper is a throwback to the 8-bit games we grew up with. You play a guy named Michael who's put in a terrible situation. His boss wants him to run a job in New York, but his wife has a holiday planned in Philadelphia. This sets up a long and kinda confusing story that involves the driver meeting up with a colorful cast of characters, including a radio disc jockey, an eager florist, a nosy cop, and a hitchhiker that warns of a future full of bulldozers. You'll check in with the characters between stages, and they'll set up the action-packed journey that takes us from Boston to Chicago. Now, Ride with the Reaper is the kind of game where you'll spend a half hour slamming your head against the wall for every minute of pleasure. The levels may be short, but they're tough. They want you to memorize every obstacle through repeated trial and error, all at a breakneck speed that feels almost unfair at first. The goal is simple: drive as fast as you can to avoid all the obstacles or the Reaper will get you. And don't think you can play it safe and just take every level in first gear, because that Reaper is always coming from behind. The concept starts out pretty straightforward, but Sergi expands on the idea with every new location. We go from simply dodging street signs and jumping over gaps in the road to shooting missiles at walls and making sharp turns. In fact, there are 2 types of turns you'll have to learn, both mapped to different buttons. And that's before you find out that there's a power-up that lets you warp to different parts of the level. There's a nice variety of obstacles and challenges sprinkled through the 40 stages, including a few actual races and a number of really tough boss fights. Now, I sound positive about Ride with the Reaper, but there were times when I absolutely hated this game. It's not that it's necessarily cheap or unfair, but it is frustrating. And I say that as a person that tends to like hard games. I mean, perhaps your reflexes are better than mine and you'll finish these courses on your first try, but I have a hunch you're gonna spend a lot of time replaying these levels until you've memorized them. While that's easy with some of the shorter stages, there are a few that drag on way past the point of things getting hazy. Throw in the multiple paths and those damn bulldozers and you have a game meant to be punishing. There's no easy mode here, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Oddly enough, the challenge starts to ease up in the second half of the game. With the exception of an especially difficult race at the end, I found that most of the New York and Chicago locations are a lot easier than Boston and Philadelphia. I think a lot of this has to do with the type of obstacles they throw at you, but it's also the abilities you earn. Being able to portal past huge gaps in the street makes the speed a lot more manageable, though I wouldn't call any of the levels easy. When it comes right down to it, I'm not actually sure if I enjoyed my time with Ride with the Reaper. There are definitely satisfying moments, and I liked overcoming the challenge, but the story isn't great, and replaying a few of the stages made me just want to throw my controller through the monitor. And yet, I think I'd probably recommend it. I'm just not sure who I'd recommend it to. Ride with the Reaper is a game that wears its punishing difficulty as a badge of honor. With a lengthy story, plenty of levels, and a lot of fun wrinkles to the gameplay, there's a lot to like about this 8-bit throwback. But with crashes that come out of nowhere and levels that are only a few seconds long, this is not for the easily frustrated. Ride with the Reaper is easily the hardest racing game you're gonna play this year. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now here's the question I have for you. What's the most difficult game you ended up enjoying? I'm not gonna lie, I loved a lot of the old school games that everybody complains about today. I'm talking Battletoads and Mega Man 2 and Ninja Gaiden. I mean, yeah, they were tough, but I somehow managed to get through them. Determination, I guess. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, I'm currently hard at work on reviews of both Risk System and A Plague Tale, so look for those to go up in the coming days. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,